Since their release, the Desolation Marines have been given a hard time over how they look. Their dual-action, belt-fed rocket launcher rocket pod combo weapons have often been compared to the Nerf range. But the thing is, their rules are still pretty good, and the concept of a backfield rocket launcher squad fits really nicely into the Raptors army that I'm currently building. So, let's see if we can improve on some Desolation Marines with the power of kitbashing.
Interview with Mr. P. Wargamer begins at 6:30 PM. So, tell us about the device, Mr. Wargamer.
Look, it's just a hobby tool, okay? I don't know anything about...
Aliens, we've analysed the artifact, Mr. Wargamer. Detachable cushion, LED light, and a device stand. Are we to believe this is of terrestrial origin?
Well, it's from Frontier Wargaming. It's on their website. It's a hobby deck. It's a specially designed painting surface for people who don't always want to be at their desk when they're painting. It's a solid design with a detachable cushion for comfort. What's weird about that?
So you were trying to tell me that the liquid receptacle device that just attaches to the artifact through magic, this isn't a fairy tale, Mr. Wargamer? What kind of technology are we talking about here?
You mean the metal cup for your paint water and the integrated magnet to stop it from falling off when you're painting? Well, there's also holders for your paint pots, miniature holders, and even a couple of grooves for your brushes. Oh, and there's also a stand for your phone if you want to follow a tutorial or watch your favourite show while you paint.
Explain the unearthly glow. What is its purpose?
It's an LED light. You can add it as an optional extra. It has a temperature of 6400 Kelvin to make painting your miniatures easier, plus it can be powered from a power bank if you're too far away from a socket.
For someone claiming innocence, you seem to know a lot about this hobby deck. Where are you getting this information from?
Like I said, it's on their website. Just go to frontierwargaming.com and use the code PTW23 and you can get 2 extra tray modules for orders over €100. You can even get it personalised with a custom engraving.
Sounds too good to be true. We'll get to the bottom of this. Mark my words. Interview concludes.
Naturally, I began by clipping away the parts required to build the Marines, specifically the torsos and legs. These were then cleaned of their mold lines and remaining tabs. The first modification, as is always the case for my Raptors, was to remove the Imperialis from the chest armour. They were first tackled with some clippers to remove the bulk of the detailing before the remaining chunks of plastic were shaved away and smoothed back. With the Imperialis removed, the torso was assembled and the whole process was repeated 4 more times. The resultant featureless panels of armour would create the perfect mounting points for some equipment later on. The biggest modification for this squad would be the launchers. Rather than being carried like a rifle, I intended to have the launchers mounted on the backpack, but to do this, I needed to liberate the rail from the original launcher. This was achieved by first clipping away the back of the weapon before using a knife to carefully cut around the hand, using the raised panel as a guide of where to cut. With the arm removed from the weapon, the Castellan launcher barrel was then cut away as well. Again, this was done steadily so as to not to damage the Castellan launcher, as this would be used later on. The remaining mag port was then sawn away, again using the raised panel as a guideline of where to cut. Once this had been removed, the final step was to clean up the cuts, which left me with the finished rail. The next task was to mount this rail to the power pack. In order to ensure the position was correct, the Super Crack rocket pods were compared to. Taking into account the space needed to accommodate these and the sensor array, I settled on mounting them towards the right of the vent panel. To mark this point out, I used my saw to make a shallow vertical line. This line would act as a guide for my Dremel. Using a cut-off disc attachment, the line was steadily widened, with the majority of the cut being directed towards the side vent. During this process, the rail was checked regularly to ensure that the gap was just wide enough for the rail to fit snugly. This was followed up with a few smaller adjustments with a file in order to clean up the cut. With the rail and pack prepped, the rocket pod was glued to the rail and both were mounted to the pack, with the rail being angled ever so slightly so they leaned a little towards the front of the Marine. The pod covers and the sensor array were then attached, and the Castellan launcher pod that was saved from earlier was glued to the underside of the rail. Finally, with the power pack complete, it was glued to one of the earlier assembled torsos. When I was planning out this conversion, I imagined my take on the Desolation Marines to be calculating trajectories and accounting for battlefield conditions to ensure that their guided rockets were on target, rather than simply pointing the missiles in the vague direction of the target and hoping for the best. Think precision artillery rather than Napoleonic-era rockets. Since the launcher had been moved to the Marine's back, his arms were now free to hold and operate the equipment needed to make those complex calculations, such as this cuff computer and bolt pistol arm, which were both taken from the Intercessor's kit. While the right shoulder pad came from the Desolation kit, for the left I dipped into the Assault Intercessor's kit and used some of the wider brimmed pads instead. When combined with a Gravis helmet from the Heavy Intercessor kit, the result was that of a slightly bulkier looking silhouette that helped to offset the larger launcher pack on the back. This bulking out process was furthered by attaching the ammo drum that would normally feed the Castellan launcher. The belt was clipped away, smoothed flat, and glued to the Marine. Following this, the small piece of pipe that would normally be attached to the gun was instead clipped back and attached to a small sensor pack from the Intercessor kit. From here, all that was left to do was the obligatory pouch phase of the build. Here, pouches sourced from various Marine kits were plastered across the model, with a holster being fixed to the chest. The holster looked a little too tacked on though, so a small batch of green stuff was cut, mixed up and rolled out into a thin strand, making sure to use a little Vaseline to keep the putty from sticking. The putty was then flattened out by rolling a paintbrush handle across the length to create a strap. Two sections of the strap were attached across the chest, either side of the holster, which helped to better blend the holster into the armor, completing the first member of the squad. From here, the same process of mounting the launcher to the packs was repeated. This method even worked for the unit's leader's Wenger launcher as well. With each torso and pack launcher built, it was time for some more arms. Again, these were sourced from various Intercessor and Phobos kits. For this model, I began with a right reloading arm, cut away the hand and glued a tablet from a Horus Heresy vehicle kit. The left arm came from the Desolation kit, but the hand was a spare open palm hand that I cut away from a previous kitbash. But the Grey Knights are generally a good source for these if you don't already have any. Another Marine was equipped with a pair of arms from the Infiltrators, another cuff computer and a typing finger. However, the bolter that would normally sit below the right arm was omitted for this particular Marine. The fourth member was given a right Intercessor comms hand, with the left arm being built from a Reaver arm and an Eliminator scope carrying hand. The unit leader's right arm was pretty straightforward and simply used the outstretched bolt pistol arm from the Intercessor kit. The left arm, however, began as a regular bolt rifle arm before the tab at the wrist was cut away, flattening the joint before gluing the arm to the torso. To this arm, another tablet from the Horus Heresy vehicle kit was attached, completing the basic build of each of the 5 squad members. Which meant that the only thing left to do now was to attach all of those pouches, grenades, holsters and auspexes to the miniatures, completing the tactical aspect of this chapter and making them ready to be painted. When it came to painting the squad, I followed the exact same steps outlined in my previous Jump Intercessors video. So if you're interested in how I painted and based the squad, then I'd recommend checking out that video, which I'll include too as a link in a card and also in the description below. And so, after painting was complete, I was left with these. And there we have it, my finished Desolation squad, complete with redesigned launchers. Personally, I'm really happy with the result. Besides the oversized and clunky looking weaponry of the original kit, I felt that the main problem was that the unit was just a group of intercessors with slightly different backpack and roughly rifle-shaped weaponry. It was the perfect opportunity to have a more unique looking unit, but what we ended up with was just another intercessor kit with a different weapon option. While I'm certainly not the first or even the last person to redesign this unit, I'd love to hear what you think of this new take on the Desolation Squad. As I mentioned, this is an ongoing army project, so be sure to check out my previous videos and leave me your suggestions for what I should add to the army next. My Kickstarter for a fully plastic Dead Animal Bits kit is live right now and will be running until December the 18th. So if you want to help bring this project to life and be among the first to get your hands on the finished kit, you can find all the details down in the description below. Now before I go, let me say a big thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members who help to keep this channel going, especially my Pouch of Dead Animal Bits tier and above supporters, who are Andrew Console, Axel Jonsson, Daniel Dowling, Immaterial Creations, Jonathan Sandsteed, Mr. Grimm, Pale Juice, Maciej Savitsky, Blobs of Corn, Ryan Little, Swedsman, Tim, Jonathan Hart, and Summit B411. And my Sergeant level channel members, who are Trooper Geo, Mr. Jared Hess 95, David, John Gibbs, The Sire Acquired, Philip Poya, Nerdington Paints, Mark Taylor, and Whale Tussler. If you're interested in supporting me, you can hit the join button below or find a link to my Patreon in the description. Supporters get a whole host of benefits, including ad-free access to my videos, sneak peeks, a private Discord channel, and exclusive merchandise. Speaking of merchandise, I also have a few t-shirts and mugs up for sale, featuring designs drawn by me. You can check those out by following the links below or by going over to petethewargamer.com. So until next time, thanks for watching, and goodbye.